Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Table Talk. I'm your host, Jake Combs, and tonight we're going to be taking a look at Eternus, the Blade of the First Prince. Now, obviously, I have unwrapped the plastic, and that's because as I started filming the very first take, the cat came over, knocked over the whole camera setup, and instead of going in and doing some major edits to correct that, we went ahead and just started over, minus the unwrapping portion. So, now, for those that are unaware, the First Prince is a reference to Be'lakor, and for anyone that didn't follow the Broken Realms storyline, which is one of the most recent events that they had, essentially Be'lakor has decided to more or less screw with not only Sigmar himself, not only the pantheon of chaos gods, which he always likes to do, because he is pretty bitter and petty in that way, but also really give it to Nagash at the same time. So he's not making any friends right now. But what he's done is, when a Stormcast dies, they're basically their souls, lightning bolt up to the heavens, where they're reforged into a new warrior. Now, with the spells that he's unleashed, he's basically put this like evil, malevolent storm cover that essentially is trapping these Stormcast souls, and then he's repurposing them to build himself a new army. And one of the very first ones that he's done is Eternus. Used to be a Stormcast Eternal, from what I've read, and now he actually his soul essentially is owed to Be'lakor, or his life rather is owed there, and in order for him to stay alive, he essentially has to eat the souls of actual Stormcasts as they are now. And so, basically he's waging a war against the Stormcast Eternals directly. And I've always been a big fan of Archaon. So as I was saying, Archaon has always been a personal favorite character of mine. Now, it's come to my attention, and I haven't followed the more recent lore. Most of my knowledge of him is, pre-end times, and then into end times itself. And so what he's been up to since then, as he's essentially reigned supreme, he's essentially had some major defeats recently, and one of them, from the way it's been explained to me, and I was not participating in this whatsoever, so I had no idea what was going on, but the way it was explained is that Archaon, there was this event where GW essentially expected Chaos players to overwhelm the other armies in this global campaign, and instead the forces of order and destruction ended up beating Chaos in this event, and so they kind of had to pivot their original plans for what was going to happen in the lore to have Archaon be defeated. Now, I don't remember who it was he was facing. I believe it was Godrak, but I'm not certain. But what he did is, essentially allowed him to live afterward, where normally that's outside of the norm for an orc. But Be'lakor has always been trying to essentially one-up him and make himself a major force. Be'lakor is always trying to one-up him and essentially become the new face or head of the Slaves to Darkness sets of armies. And so Eternus is definitely the start to that. Now, with Warcry, we've seen some legionnaires that are dedicated to him specifically. The Centaur Eon is also one of his, and so we're slowly seeing an increase to Be'lakor's base forces. Now, my prediction is in the somewhat future, we are going to see a split in Slaves to Darkness, where either we're going to see, Archeon essentially, kind of take a backseat to Be'lakor, which I don't think is going to happen because so many players love Archeon as the focal point of their armies. But what I think is going to happen is, again, down the road, we're going to eventually see more releases for Be'lakor's forces, and Be'lakor actually get his own battle tome for his own forces as well. And but kind of be like with the rest of the Chaos Pantheon models, you can combine them for larger armies as well. But in the short term, what I'm expecting is, in a future issue of White Dwarf, we probably get a kind of a like an insert there that's going to be like special rules for a force that's Be'lakor themed itself. Now I would expect that probably by the end of the year. That is my prediction. I have not been told anything from the folks at Games Workshop. This is pure speculation. But let's go ahead and take a look at the model. Now, based on the back of the box, it does show assembly options for the Chaos Lord on Demonic Mount, or Demonic Mount rather. And from what I understand, that is actually a previous model. And if that is correct, that means that what we have here is essentially a combination of two different models. Or sorry, not a combination, but we have the original sprue and then the add-ons. But looking at the copyright dates for both of them are copyrighted to 2022, so it tells me that that information may be false. Now we do have two different heads for the horse, for like one that makes it look more demonic, one that makes it look more horse-like. Now me personally, I prefer actually the look of the more horse-like horse head. But looking at this, there is a ton of detail on the armor, as the mail, the weapons, the horse heads pieces alone, have a good amount of detail as well. A lot of really cool stuff that I'm seeing on here, and definitely looking forward to. I love this chest plate that it has for the horse itself. Basically this kind of demonic head with a bunch of spikes and horns coming out of it. Definitely a very cool looking model. I'm very much looking forward to building this. Essentially my intention is to build it as Eternus, but with the alternate horse head. Otherwise, I'm doing it pretty much exactly the same. Because that's the only part I'm not a big fan of. Like, I do like the horns coming off of it. It's really just the mouth piece that I dislike about it. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up carving where the ears are, similar to make it match the way that this head is, and I'll do a zoom in so you can see closer. And in fact, let's take a closer look at those models now. So here's the close-up of the models. So these are the various heads. Like these two right here are the standard horse head. This one, and then over here are the demonic head. So as you can see, we have the little carve out for the horns, where here it's actually just a horse ear. So definitely plan on converting that to allow for the actual horns there as well, but the more standard horse mouth. And actually, let's move this out of the way so that way you can actually see less distraction there. All right, so as you saw, the where I intend to make those trims to bring in the horns for the actual side horns for the head, but I do like the kind of unicorn shaped horn that's on the demonic head. But again, there's a lot of details on here. Some room for some basic conversions that can be done, but definitely a lot of really cool stuff on here. Makes me wonder if this is truly a like an upgrade sprue. It's possible that if it is, that this one that actually has the two heads may be the original half of the sprue, and that it always featured those different heads, and then this being the upgrade portion. But looking at the different weapon options that are on here, I definitely don't think that's the case. I think what they did is they retooled the original molds to use some pieces to be the same and some pieces not. And again, I don't know for certain that that's what's been done here, or if this is actually entirely a new model. My return to Age of Sigmar from the old school Warhammer fantasy battles has been basically a long skip to get to where we are now, and I've missed a lot of releases in between. So it could just be a similar model that I remember seeing that I'm attributing to this. But looking at it, it's a great looking model. Definitely excited to build it and get going and starting my Be'lakor themed Slaves to Darkness army. Now, my intention for the army is going to be a massive kind of conglomeration of all the Warkai Chaos Warbands, as well as all the Be'lakor pieces. And then I do have Arki on his mount, but his three-headed dragon mount thing. But that's more going to be a decoration piece, and it's not going to get used as often in my army as maybe Be'lakor will, just because of the thematic style, and definitely going for more of the Be'lakor theme with my forces. So definitely something to look forward to. One of the next things I do have planned is the start of my Slaves of Darkness chariots, which most of which are going to be very converted, so something to look forward to. And that's it for tonight. Thank you guys as always for watching, and I hope you have a great night.